I am Dr. Henri Colt, and this presentation is part of Bronchoscopy Academy, an ongoing competency-based curriculum in flexible bronchoscopy. The goal of this work is to improve procedural understanding, anatomical recognition, and clinical judgment, while helping reduce patient suffering associated with unequal expertise and inconsistent training. In this lecture, we will review the fundamentals of transbronchial lung biopsy, including its history, indications, equipment, procedural techniques, expected diagnostic yield, and potential complications. By understanding the principles underlying this important procedure, clinicians can improve both diagnostic success and patient safety. Transbronchial lung biopsy, commonly abbreviated as TBLB, remains one of the most valuable bronchoscopic techniques for obtaining samples of lung parenchyma without resorting to surgical biopsy. Like every invasive procedure, however, success depends on far more than technical skill alone. Appropriate patient selection, careful preparation, sound clinical judgment, and meticulous technique are equally important. Throughout this presentation, we will emphasize not only how the procedure is performed, but also when it should be performed and how complications can be minimized. Transbronchial lung biopsy is a procedure that requires dedicated training. The objective is not simply to obtain tissue. The objective is to obtain adequate tissue safely while minimizing patient discomfort and avoiding unnecessary complications. Proper training improves diagnostic yield while reducing cough, anxiety, prolonged procedures, excessive sedation, bleeding, pneumothorax, and equipment damage. Competency, therefore, benefits both patients and operators. In this module, we will review the historical development of transbronchial lung biopsy, current indications and contraindications, the equipment required, procedural principles, the role of fluoroscopy, diagnostic yield, and the complications clinicians should anticipate. Subsequent modules will focus in greater detail on procedural technique and complication management. Transbronchial lung biopsy was introduced during the 1970s as an alternative to open lung biopsy for selected patients. Initially, the procedure was considered high risk. In fact, oftentimes, it was performed in the operating room. Many procedures and biopsies were performed after endotracheal intubation, and pulmonologists often encountered resistance from surgeons regarding its adoption. Early experience was associated with relatively frequent bleeding, pneumothorax, and respiratory failure. As technology improved and operator experience increased, the procedure gradually became accepted as a routine component of interventional pulmonary practice. Today, transbronchial lung biopsy is usually performed as an outpatient procedure in a dedicated bronchoscopy suite using conscious sedation and topical anesthesia. Fluoroscopy has become an important adjunct for many operators because it allows visualization of biopsy forceps relative to the pleural surface, facilitates accurate sampling, and often eliminates the need for routine post-procedure chest radiographs. Patients should nevertheless remain under observation following the procedure because pneumothorax, when it occurs, can develop during or shortly after biopsy. The decision to perform transbronchial lung biopsy should always begin with a simple question: will the result influence patient management? In many cases, bronchoalveolar lavage or bronchial washings may provide sufficient diagnostic information. When those procedures are unlikely to be diagnostic, or when tissue architecture is required, transbronchial biopsy becomes appropriate. Common indications include diffuse pulmonary infiltrates, selected infectious diseases, interstitial lung diseases, pulmonary lymphoma, carcinoma, pulmonary nodules, and localized infiltrates where histologic diagnosis is necessary. Like every invasive procedure, TBLB also has important contraindications. The procedure should not be performed when appropriate equipment or operator expertise is lacking. Bleeding disorders, thrombocytopenia, anticoagulation, significant uremia, pulmonary hypertension, or clinical situations in which a pneumothorax could become life-threatening all require careful consideration. Patients with previous pneumonectomy, impending respiratory failure, or severely compromised pulmonary reserve deserve a especially thoughtful risk-benefit analysis. The safest procedure is sometimes the one that is not performed. Most biopsies are obtained using either cup forceps or tooth forceps. The choice of forceps influences specimen characteristics, but is only one component of successful tissue acquisition. Large forceps generally obtain larger specimens, while toothed or alligator forceps may increase tissue disruption. Operators should become familiar with the advantages and limitations of each accessory instrument. For many bronchoscopists, fluoroscopy has become an important safety tool. By directly visualizing the biopsy forceps relative to the pleura, fluoroscopy decreases uncertainty regarding forceps position and may reduce the risk of pneumothorax. It also allows sampling of localized infiltrates, facilitates efficient positioning of the bronchoscope, and often eliminates the need for routine post-procedure chest radiography. Successful use of fluoroscopy requires preparation before bronchoscopy begins. The C-arm, if used, should be positioned, tested, and adjusted before sedation whenever possible. The bronchoscopist should remain familiar with radiation safety principles and minimize fluoroscopy time throughout the procedure. Keeping your body and the scope out of the fluoroscopy field is essential. Even while using fluoroscopy, patients can be moved into the lateral safety position in case of bleeding. Several procedural techniques have evolved over time. It is important to know radiographic locations of bronchial segments. Some operators prefer the wedge technique, positioning the bronchoscope distally within the target bronchus. Representative videos are available in other areas of this YouTube channel. This technique provides excellent tamponade should bleeding occur. Others favor a more proximal full-view technique, maintaining visualization of multiple segmental bronchi while directing forceps into selected airways. Neither approach is universally superior. The choice depends upon anatomy, operator experience, and the clinical situation. Several practical observations improve both safety and diagnostic yield. Patients should understand that lung tissue itself does not contain pain fibers and that the biopsy usually does not hurt. However, they should immediately report pleuritic discomfort, since this often indicates proximity to the pleura. Biopsies are generally obtained as close to the pleural surface as safely possible because distal specimens contain representative alveolar tissue while avoiding larger proximal bronchial vessels. The lingula and right middle lobe are often avoided because of their proximity to fissures, potentially increasing pneumothorax risk. Maintaining fluoroscopy time as short as possible, coordinating forceps movement with respiration, and preserving wedge position during forceps withdrawal all contribute to smoother, safer procedures. A few additional hints are found on this slide. If the scope is over-wedged, try pulling it back and starting again to make the forceps exit the scope somewhat easier. A touch and feel technique may be used when fluoroscopy is unavailable. By advancing the forceps until subtle resistance or pleuritic discomfort is encountered, the operator estimates peripheral position before obtaining biopsy samples. Although useful, this technique generally requires greater experience and may prolong the procedure. Spend a few moments reading this slide carefully. And here's what the experts say. When infiltrates are diffuse and involve the lower lobe, prefer biopsies from the lateral basal segment because fluoroscopically, the position of the forceps is true in relation to the chest wall. Asking the patient to inhale as the forceps is opened allows the operator to advance the forceps further toward the periphery. Keep the forceps open and advance into the periphery for as short a time possible, also keeping fluoroscopy time to a minimum, usually less than 30 seconds per biopsy. Ask the patient to exhale just before closing the forceps. A quick and short tug is often followed by a new patient inhalation. By advancing the bronchoscope as the forceps is withdrawn, the scope can be maintained in the wedge position. This is crucial so that the scope is in position in case of a massive bleed. There is no need to pull the forceps quickly up into the bronchoscope after taking a biopsy. Although generally safe, transbronchial lung biopsy carries important risks. Pneumothorax occurs in approximately 1 to 4% of procedures. Bleeding is considerably more common, although most episodes are minor and self-limited. Significant hemorrhage is uncommon, but potentially life-threatening. Mortality remains extremely low, but is not zero. These risks emphasize the importance of careful patient selection, correction of visible, reversible bleeding abnormalities whenever possible, and individualized assessment rather than rigid adherence to laboratory thresholds alone. The risk of bronchoscopy with transbronchial biopsy are far greater than when procedures do not include TBLB. Bleeding risk increases if patients have bleeding disorders or problems with coagulation. Uremia is a particular risk. Precautions include laboratory analyses and stopping certain medications well before the procedure. Risks are also presumed to be greater in patients with emphysema, vasculitis, interstitial lung disease, and when biopsies are taken from non-gravity dependent areas or in regions immediately adjacent to lung fissures. The diagnostic yield of transbronchial biopsy depends upon many variables: operator experience, pathology expertise, disease process, specimen size, number of biopsies obtained, and predetermined diagnostic criteria all influence results. Sample size remains debatable. Results have changed over the years and frequently improve when cryobiopsies are obtained using cryotherapy. Years ago, there was a lot of debate about numbers of specimens and differential expected yields according to suspected disease processes. A lot was written about something called the float sign, that a specimen that floated in specimen fluid would be a good representative sample from bronchiolar and alveolar tissues rather than from bronchial mucosa. Eventually, studies proved this to be inaccurate. Some older studies also suggested that alligator forceps caused more bleeding than cup forceps, and that larger forceps obtained more tissue. For diffuse infiltrative disease such as sarcoidosis, alveolar proteinosis, lymphangitic carcinomatosis, hypersensitivity pneumonitis, and selected opportunistic infections, yields are often quite high. Conversely, benign pulmonary nodules and fibrotic interstitial lung disease frequently produce lower diagnostic yields because tissue architecture may be insufficient for definitive diagnosis, or because the lesion cannot be reached using standard TBLB techniques with only fluoroscopy. Increasing the number of biopsy specimens generally improves diagnostic yield, but also modestly increases procedural risk. Achieving the proper balance remains an important aspect of clinical judgment. In summary, transbronchial lung biopsy has evolved from a high-risk hospital procedure into a routine diagnostic technique performed safely in modern bronchoscopy suites. Its success depends on thoughtful patient selection, appropriate indications, familiarity with equipment, meticulous technique, and recognition of potential complications. No single technical maneuver guarantees success. Rather, consistent attention to preparation, patient comfort, procedural efficiency, and sound judgment allows clinicians to maximize diagnostic yield while minimizing patient risk. In subsequent modules, we will examine procedural technique and complication management in greater practical detail. Bronchoscopy Academy is part of an ongoing competency-based approach to bronchoscopy education. Our goal is to reduce patient suffering caused by unequal procedural expertise, inconsistent training, and preventable error. Additional educational resources, reflective essays, and narrated lectures are available at bronchoscopy.org and henricolt.substack.com.